Hello everybody and welcome back to your favorite talk show, Talk the Talk, well, online motoring talk show. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode, and I trust that you'll find this interview pretty inspiring and motivating. I'm your host. My name is 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐻𝐵 Maphumulo, and our guest for today is a stunning, tenacious, vibrant young woman who is passionate about the brand that she represents. She is self-assured and devoted to her team with her deep understanding of market trends, client wants, and the competitive landscape which we work in. She creates and implements marketing strategies which in turn boosts revenue. So, without further ado, let's welcome Sithabile Maphumulo, and she is the Vice President of the Marketing Department at Motus Vehicle Distributions Bruma, and we are so happy to have her with us. As always, this interview is proudly brought to you by Seriti Solutions, MFC, and Avo by Nedbank. Hello, Sithabile.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's so fantastic to be here.
Can I have to say congratulations on your nomination?
Oh, I'm so pleased and such an honor to be nominated.
Aww. So, for us to get more votes for you, we're going to have to introduce you to our network, okay? So we've done the introduction, let's learn more about you. Tell our viewers more about your journey in the motoring trade.
So I'm a marketer first. So my marketing experience spans close to 20 years.
Wow.
In marketing in different brands, different countries across the continent. I joined Renault South Africa in 2018, so that was my first entry into motoring, and it was actually just brought on by I've always wanted to live in Paris. Wow. So how so how I look at when I do look at job opportunities, careers, I look at what I'm interested in, I look at what I'm passionate about, and it just so happened at the same time that I was thinking about, maybe now is the time for me to make my Paris move. I got recruited by a French company, so that's close enough. Yeah, so I've been now with Renault South Africa for 5 years, and it's been quite a wild ride because, first year being in Renault was just learning about everything about cars, learning about the 4.4 per litre per 100 kilometers, and I'm just like...
Is that what you're getting out of your Duster?
That's what I'm getting out of my Duster.
4.4?
Yeah, 4.4. So I'm an avid Duster lover.
I can see that.
Yeah, I drive to Durban on one tank and halfway and only fill up then. So
wow.
It's phenomenal.
Trust a marketer selling a brand. We're not here to sell Renault, but you know what? Why not get that in?
I'm an advocate for my brand. So in the 5 years, I've had the pleasure of the ups of starting in a new industry and the lows of COVID, because that kind of just, made everything stand still. And now we're back on the up again. And
thank you, Lord.
Yeah, it's been a great journey thus far.
Yeah, no, definitely. And what's your opinion about our initiatives that are powered by Nedbank?
I think the angle of always empowering women is one that I fully support. Equality for me is something that is really important. And being in an industry that is predominantly male, I think people like me bring diversity, not only just from a gender point of view, but from a color, from a age, and from different experiences. I mean, I'm not a through and through motoring expert, but I'm a through and through marketer, through multiple disciplines and multiple brands. And it helps us to have different conversations because, representation only happens when doors are open. And sometimes we have to kick the doors open. And so I'm a firm believer in equality because it also gives you a voice.
Yes, it does. So have you been to Paris?
Multiple times.
Okay, so I just needed to get that in there, okay? Tell me, has there been like something interesting that you've learned about whilst working in the motoring trade? Something different, an experience that's kind of unusual?
I would have to say the consumer mind is one that is fascinating. You know, just before we started this interview, you were telling me what your brand of choice is, but
no, I wasn't. Don't lie. Don't lie.
No, we're not going to expose any more details. But it's always fascinating to me when a person that is buying a chocolate and a person that is buying a car, which is a high involvement and high ticket item,
right?
And when you ask them why they like this particular chocolate or why they like this particular car, and your initial reaction was like, you know, I don't know if I'm loyal, or I don't know if it's one of the brands that I just love.
Yes.
You know, so that was the biggest aha for me, going from like fast-moving consumable brands, going into fashion brands, and that's been a common thread. People love what they love, and us as marketers, we have to then understand what is it that people are actually saying, because love is love, but then we have to distill it to the what and the why.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's been an interesting learning, because like talking to people that are in the motoring industry, it's either like people like, they'll tell you that their blood is made out of fuel, you know.
My blood is blue,
yeah,
my blood is red.
Exactly. And you know, people are petrol heads, but you just have to always just distill it to what are you actually saying, and why are you saying, you know, you either love that brand or you are a die-hard motoring enthusiast through and through. And that's been something that's been fascinating.
Wow, it's quite fascinating to me that marketers, and I do a lot of marketing as well, need to be psychologists as well.
True. True.
Absolutely.
True. Yeah.
So what's something that you are super proud of?
In my career or
both.
in my life?
Before you were marketing, I think you said, I'm a marketer first, despite what brand or, you know, what I'm representing. But I think you're a woman first, and I think you are a mother, or are you a mother?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so even personally, what is something that you're really proud of?
I'm proud of the fact that, you know, as one of the things that I put into my vision boards many moons ago, before it was even called vision boarding, is I wanted to be at a certain brand and have experienced certain travels, miles, and I've done that.
Aww, well done.
I'm feeling really grateful to be alive today after, you know, the COVID pandemic that we've had. You know, not a lot of people have had the opportunity to actually, you know, be alive, or even to say, you know, I've gone through most of my bucket list things.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And you have so much life left to live.
I do, and so much life, and so much to see, and so much to do.
Absolutely.
So that's the thing that I'm most proud of.
Absolutely. And how do you find the courage and the strength, you know, to face those days where you are just not in the mood?
I'm a forever optimist. So things get me down, very few things keep me down. So it's about rising, it's about getting up and being able to say to yourself, okay, acknowledge where you are. If things didn't work out the way that they were supposed to work out, so how do I pivot? How do I come back? And sometimes just realizing like, I'm tired. And just then saying to yourself, what do I need to energize? What do I need to replenish? What do I need for me to be, you know, on the up again? So, and that's how I keep myself going. My family is a place where I recharge and get motivation. But one thing that I work and I strive for is discipline, because, you know, after the motivation is gone and after the passion is gone, you have to have discipline and just say to yourself, I'm doing this, and see it through. And then at some point you reconnect with your discipline and your passion and your motivation again. So that's the motto that basically
I love that.
I live by.
Yeah, I think it's so important that we don't give up when we're tired, but rest.
Yeah.
And I've been through many of those phases where I'm like, am I done? I've been doing this for 20 years as a journalist, or doing the same old thing. And then all I realized after the resting period is that that's all I needed. So it's so important. Tell me, Sithabile, what can women do to portray an impression of confidence when asked a question by a client, or by colleagues, or just anybody in terms of the brand that they're representing, and they have no idea how to respond to that?
Sure.
The reason I ask this question is because we are in positions where we are expected, because of our experience, we are expected to know everything, and that's almost impossible. It is impossible because technology happens, we are evolving. There's just like being a doctor, you've got to, or an accountant, you've got to move with the times, and you've got to constantly educate yourself. And that happens in our trade. There's product training all the time, and you must few. I represent 29 brands. I must at least 3/4 of them, because there's not many journalists in my circle that can represent. So I've got to learn. But I don't know everything all the time, and me aside, I've seen that with the ladies in my network, and they feel very demotivated and not like that empowered woman because they can't answer the question.
I think as women, our strength is in being able to learn and to be multifaceted. I think that's a strength that we have. Like if you put a woman to do something or to get something done, whether she knows it or she doesn't, it's one of those things where we find ourselves in difficult positions, and we learn and we pivot. So the advice that I would always give people is that if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
And I've been in very fortunate environments in all the brands that I've worked in, is that I've had very supportive mentors, supportive bosses, supportive environment, so that allowed for vulnerability. Because that's something that I think is perceived as a woman. There's certain emotional disconnects that we think that once you go into the workplace, you cannot apply vulnerability. You cannot apply being open. You should be the one that is the full vessel, But those are all reactions to insecurities, And if we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we don't allow ourselves then to learn. And we also don't allow ourselves to engage in beyond just the work, because my belief is we had worked for so long, so let's make it fun, let's make it a learning experience. And I would be so unhappy if work was just about being on the laptop and just punching in my numbers and doing what I need to do, and there's no joy in it.
I think feeling confident and being comfortable in your skin is actually what makes you beautiful. So women need to have that, as you said, vulnerability to even admit, that, listen, I am not aware, I do not know, and realize that that does not diminish what you do know, or take away who you are and what you are capable of. So the vulnerability you talk about, very important. Tell me, Sithabile, has there ever been a situation where you have faced unusual, discriminatory, situations, and how did you deal with this?
I'd say that I've been in the fortunate position that I haven't faced a lot of discriminatory issues. There have been things that you know that have happened which were uncalled for and which were just downright just unacceptable. And in those instances, which I just had to call it out. Like I believe in being able to, you know, if you're not unhappy about something and if something is not aligned with your values or whatever it may be, then you need to call it out. Because then if someone is not aware that this makes you uncomfortable or you are offended by something, then when they repeat it again, then they can call for ignorance. But if someone now, you've called it out and they're aware of it, then it's no longer ignorance, and then now they are actively acting on their value system. And if it's something that, you know, is based on discrimination, we don't have a place for that type of behavior or that type of characteristic, and then we just have to deal with it. So I do not stand for any type of discrimination, and it's not something that I will just passively just walk on by and just let it happen.
No, I think that's so important. Call it out. Let's just, you know, cut through the slack here, just call it out. It's so important that we understand that it is, especially for us in the motoring trade, where we are extremely minority. Yes, people come here and they say we were a male-dominated industry. No, we are a male-dominated industry. Stats are that we over 320,000 men and 83,000 women in the industry, and there's only 2 to 3% leadership roles that are assigned to women. So we have a long way to go, and there's a lot of discrimination that's still happening, and it's a conversation, it's a narrative that I want to continue to engage in. So it's so important that you have brought that, even though you said, I've been fortunate. When you started started your answer, you said, I have been fortunate, however. And I think that however is so important, and that's why we have this program for women like yourself to come through and say, it's there, young woman, it's there. This is how you're going to deal with it. How you react to a situation is very important, not that situation. So thank you for that answer. Any words of advice for those young women that we are trying to bring into our trade to balance these scales?
Motoring has been the gift that keeps on giving for me.
Oh man.
I've viewed my career and my life as a half glass full. You know, that's how I view everything, and the way that I live. And it's been one of those things, you know, I had the insecurities of saying, oh, you know, it's going to be difficult. There's so many men. The environment is very homogenous, and coming from a very different mindset brand where it was more of a youthful, more of a very vibrant environment into a very corporate and traditional space. The one thing that I've taken is that I'm still me. And I was able to bring that across into my business. And I think that it's helped us to bridge the gap between the traditional, bridge the gap between the youthful, and then also just allowing for diversity. So I would say for women and for anyone actually, you need to find your voice sooner. And you need to find who you are sooner, because then that kind of then permeates into everything that you do. You're not worried in a board meeting or in a meeting environment of like, oh, what are they going to think about me? What are they going to say? Because you already have established your self-awareness and who you are and how you want to be perceived. That's not something that you're grappling with. Now you're just focusing on the work. So I would say that, you know, for women or for anyone entering into a new environment or wanting to get the best out of whatever it is that they're doing at the time, is to bring yourself. Yeah.
Right, and education is very important.
Yeah.
Knowledge and I mean, that's your tool. That is your tool.
So those are the basics, you know, for me, when I think about what are the criteria that employers are looking for when looking for filling a job. You know, some of the things, positions have certain education requirements. So you need to always be improving and feeding your knowledge base, because we take so much time looking at how we can improve our lives. Maybe like it's like, oh, this year I always laugh at the beginning of the year, you know, the New Year's resolution people. And you know, I want to do X, Y, Z. And when you think about simple things like what are you doing that is not an external thing, because it's very easy for us to go into this drive of saying, I'm going to go to gym, I'm going to, for those people who don't have work-life balance, maybe thinking like, I'm going to sleep 8 hours a day, I'm going to spend more time with my family, but that's an outwardly thing. And when you look at who that person has to live that outwardly life, it's you.
Right.
So education is something that I believe in. So study, even if it's it's not a university, some sort of study. There's so many free resources now which are accredited. Online.
Right.
Yeah, which are accredited. You can do equivalent studies which are, like gaming is increasing so much.
Absolutely.
Tech is increasing so much. AI, all of those things. If you're not having the conversations that are future-led and you're still holding on to what you know, you're going to be left behind.
Absolutely.
So, self-improvement is a big driver. And the people that are succeeding are people who have a balance. You have to self-improve.
Yes.
You have to deliver at what you're doing, because if you're just self-improving but your KPIs are going backwards, then it's not marrying. You have to find your happy place, because I honestly believe that we're not just here to work, you know.
No, absolutely not. No way.
And
all work and no play makes one a very dull person. I'm not going to say boring girl, but and so you need to find ways to feed your soul and feed your creativity. You need to find time to have fellowship, whether what that fellowship looks like, if it's with family, if it's through a religion intervention, or if it's through anything that creates a community where you belong, because we are innately people and beings that want to belong. So if all of your bases are covered, you then just only have to worry about the things that you're doing at the time. And when you're at work, you're at work. Yes.
And once the clock hits 5 o'clock, or whenever it is that you decide to finish work, you're done.
Right.
So, and when you're with your family, you're with your family. And there are just no negotiables with some of those things, because I believe that sometimes we give too much permission and too much leverage to things that create imbalance. And then we don't want to take accountability of that balance. And then that makes us people who are just living from day to day. And that for me is such a tragedy.
Yeah, it is, most definitely. And I think just going back to what you said, it is so important for us to understand that when it comes to success, it's all these little accomplishments, personal and professional, that will ultimately pave the way to success. So it's very, very important. I just want to say thank you so much, Sithabile, for joining us, for accepting your nomination, for being a part of this movement. It's not a competition, it is a movement, and we are so humbled, proud, and excited to have you on this journey with us. Thank you.
I'm so honored to have been included in this movement, and I believe in all things women, and womandla all the way.
Thank you.
And what you're doing is just helping to amplify the cause. And I think, you're doing the Lord's work.
Oh, thank you. I am going to take this interview as my flagship interview and share it far and wide. Thank you, Sithabile. Thank you very much. Viewers, we would like to thank you for your continued support and encourage you to like and share our content. Our non-profit companies, the Motoring Woman of the Year Awards, powered by MFC and 𝐬𝐥𝐸 by Nedbank, and the Talk Studios, sponsored by Seriti Solutions and 𝐬𝐥𝐸 by Nedbank, are platforms aimed at empowering, uplifting, and celebrating the women of motoring South Africa. We are not just telling stories, we are changing lives. If you are searching for a new or pre-owned vehicle, please visit www.auto.avo.africa. We have a wide range of vehicles on sale for you to choose from, and we only advertise on behalf of reliable and trustworthy MFC accredited dealerships. This car listing portal is user-friendly, and you can also find vehicle reviews, car maintenance tips, and automotive advice, all courtesy of Talk the Talk Studios. Ladies, there you have it. I think Sithabile talked about discipline, and I'm going to add to that dedication and devotion, and I call it the 3D: devotion, dedication, discipline, and determination. It's actually 4 Ds. But ladies, you can develop a sense of this discipline and mastery in your work when you tackle even mundane chores with a sense of concentration and attention. As a result, you may develop a sense of confidence and self-assurance over time, which may inspire you to take on more difficult tasks and have even more success. Thus, in order to become extraordinary, begin by concentrating on the routine duties and the activities in your life and approaching them with a sense of complete involvement and devotion. By doing this, you will also realize your full potential and succeed more fully in all aspects of your life. And as I said earlier on, it's all these little accomplishments that will eventually or inevitably lead to ultimate success. If you do ordinary things with absolute involvement, you will become extraordinary. And with that, I would like to remind you that the question should never be who's going to let me. It should always be who's going to stop me.